Welcome to the Do You Hun Podcast, a place to provide you with direction, motivation, and to be your very own cheerleader. This podcast is sponsored by my goddamn self, so if you like home scents and affordable fragrances without compromising on quality, then head to Splendid Bliss on Facebook or Instagram. But for now, let the podcast begin. Hello, and welcome back to the Do You Hun Podcast. It is episode 2, and what we're going to talk about today is when your thoughts can hurt you. I thought this was a really important topic today because a lot of us are really struggling with negative thinking, and negative thinking does not only impact on how we think about ourselves, it can impact on how we think about the world, how we view other people, but also it can highly affect our behaviour. Okay, so for instance, if I was thinking really negatively about the way I speak, this would highly prevent me from doing a podcast because, you know, I wouldn't feel as confident. I wouldn't be able to record or listen to my voice. Every hurdle will be in my way because I'd be thinking to myself, you can't do it. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are doing a podcast? And I'm going to be very honest with you. That's something that I've done for a long time. But yet here I am, ready for you, and I'm ready for action. Anyway, what this podcast is going to do today is I'm going to talk about 4 ways that you can manage your negative thinking. And what I want to do by this is just reshape, restructure how you think about your thoughts in general. Because the problem is, a lot of the time when we think about our thoughts, the thoughts we have, they feel out of control, okay? We feel very overwhelmed by what we're thinking, and we often feel that we don't have a handle on it, and we are very, very out of control, and our thoughts are running us. Do you feel like that right now? Do you feel like that your thoughts are kind of running you and not the other way around? I'm here to tell you that we can change that. It's going to take a bit of time. And it's going to take a bit of practice, but we can change that. And honestly, if you can change the way you think, you can change your life, okay? Because if you can change the way you view the world, the way you view yourself, the way you speak to yourself, honestly, life-changing, absolutely life-changing. So let's get going then about how we can manage our thoughts, and I will come very quickly to the 4 different ways that we can do that. But firstly, I just wanted to highlight some examples of how our negative thinking can really impact us. So firstly, if you was about to, have an exam, for instance, you was about to enter an exam, and there was 2 different ways we could think about this exam. One thought could be, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to get in and do it. I'm going to write everything I know. I've revised for this. I will do my absolute best. Then actually, we're probably going to go in there with a okay attitude. We're going to be quite comfortable. You know, we're going to get on with the task. We're going to get the exam done. Whereas if we're saying, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to pass, I'm stupid, I should have done more revision, even though you've been revising so much, by the way, and all of these negative thinking, you're going to go into that exam a bit frazzled. You might walk in there very unconfident. You might even be really anxious that you're shaking. And all of these things consequently perhaps may affect your the way you conduct yourself during that exam, or even your results, depending on how negative you are thinking. What I'm trying to tell you is our words can have an immense power. And if nobody thinks that they do, you're wrong. I'm sorry to say, but you're wrong, because our words do have power. What we say to ourselves matters. What we say to other people matters. It really, really does. Okay. So I'm going to tell you about a study now, and it blew my goddamn mind, and it's probably going to blow yours. But listen to the end before you kind of think this is a load of rubbish, because if I'm honest, I was a bit like, that doesn't make any sense. But maybe we don't need to know all of it, but it's just to highlight why and how our thoughts and our feelings and what we say can have a massive, massive impact. So there is a doctor called Masaru Emoto, and he was looking at the relationship between our thoughts and how our thoughts can impact different things, i.e. water. Okay, stay with me. So he had 2 different glasses of water, and he had participants say really positive things for one glass of water and negative things to another glass of water, okay? So one of these group was saying, you're great, you're lovely, you're doing a great job, you keep everyone hydrated, whatever it might be. And another group going, you're rubbish, you look awful, and whatever, okay? And what he actually found is when he was looking at the intricacies of the different waters, the water that had the positive wordings and, messages to, the water crystals were really clear, they were lovely, they looked like snowflakes, and they were just perfectly formed, and they were like crystals. Whereas the water that had the negative language and the negative wording, that water was distorted and the kind of crystals was very fragmented. So it highlights that even the words that we say to water can have an impact on the future, that can have an impact on where we go next, which just blows my mind. I then did research into why this might be, and it basically said that we use the same energy as water. If you think about it, we're made up, about 55%, 75% water, and because we use the same energy as water, that's why we are affected. There is energy everywhere. There is an output and input to everything in life, and what we say, we get a reaction, we get an outcome, okay? Let's think of another example. If you have someone in a room with you, and you tell them, you're a piece of shit, you can't do anything right, you can't do this, you can't do that, you will physically see that person change, okay? Their body language will change. They might go quite introverted. They might be a bit fidgety. They might try and look after themselves by holding their hands or, trying to get themselves in a closed off position because they're trying to protect themselves. They might get really uncomfortable. They might leave the room. You will physically see in that person what that impact will have on them, okay? Whereas if you said to someone, you're brilliant, you're beautiful, I love you, you're great, because of you, you've made me laugh. You will physically see someone brighten, smile on the face, the way they think. They'll have a little bit of a, spring in their step, all because of this different wording that you have used, okay? So sometimes when we are saying anything to ourselves, we need to try and make sure that it's positive. And you might be listening right now and going, oh yeah, that's great, Laura. I can't be positive right now. I feel you because I wasn't there. And this is why I'm here to help you retrain your brain. It doesn't happen overnight, definitely not. I mean, if it did, no one would need therapy, would they? But what we can do is we can retrain our brain over time so that it feels easier, so that we have a bit of a filter within ourselves where every thought doesn't impact us so much that we feel that we can't cope, okay? If you think about it, you don't go to the gym once and then get a rocking body, like I don't go to the gym. I don't ever go to the gym anymore, unfortunately. I should probably really. But if I went to the gym once, I'm not going to look like Jessica Alba, am I, in Honey? No, I'm not. But if I went to the gym several times a week, if I worked on myself, if I was eating really well, I'm going to get to where I need to be, right? And this is very, very similar to your brain and your mindset. You need to retrain it. And the more you exercise it, the more you train your brain, which is a muscle, the better it's going to be for you. So this is what these podcasts for. Looking after yourself, self-help, all of this stuff is going to get you to where you need to be. Okay. So how exactly do we change our thoughts? You might be thinking, I can't, it doesn't work. I've tried loads of things. And that might be true. That might not have worked for you initially, but there might be a different way that you can manage your thoughts moving forward that can. And as I said, practice makes perfect. Retraining your brain is going to take some time. So first, number one, how do we do this? First one, stop. Okay. It's called the stop approach. And this is something used in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's the stop technique. It's literally saying to yourself, stop. I'm not doing this. I'm not listening to this right now. I'm going to take a breath. Okay. And that might sound really simple, but what you're doing, you're disrupting your brain. You're giving it literally a stop button. You're making your brain think, hold on, what's going on here? What are we stopping for? What are we doing? And what you're then doing is you're doing something different by breathing in, by focusing on your breath. You're switching your brain to think about a different activity. You're switching your brain to think about this breath. And then what you do, you really focus on your breath in and your breath out. Okay? And that is going to give you a tiny bit of clarity for you to go, okay, how else can I think about this? So number 2 is challenging your thoughts. So number 1 is stop, and then number 2 is challenge your thoughts, okay? We have something like 80,000 thoughts in a day. Often they're very curious, they don't make sense, they have no factual basis, there's no evidence for them. They're clearly assumptions, but yet we allow them to hold so much power within us. We allow them to affect us so much that it ruins our whole day, you know? It can ruin our whole day, our week, our months, whatever it might be, and we can feel like complete and utter rubbish. So what we need to do, we need to challenge every single thought that will hurt you. Okay, so challenge your thoughts then. So straight away, you've got the stop, you've got that little bit of clarity. How can I think differently about this? Okay, how can I think differently about this? Or is this even true? You know what I'm thinking right now, is this even true? For me, I was very critical of myself, especially when I had depression. And a lot of my things was about being stupid, looking like somebody who wasn't capable, wasn't perfect. All of the negative words I would say about myself, I would. Okay. And as you can imagine, that just made me feel like complete and utter rubbish. Okay. So in order to change that, am I really stupid? Can I get things right? And what you are doing by asking different questions, guess what? You are going to get different answers. Okay. So when you say to yourself, am I really this? Or actually, I'm not stupid. I've done this. I've done that. I'm somebody that is able to do this, whatever it might be. And actually, when you do that, it disrupts your brain and it gives your brain something different. When you say, actually, I'm not stupid because I've gone through school, I've done exams, I've got this grade, I've got that grade, instantly your brain goes, oh, yeah, you're right. How much power does this thought have now? When we give this thought facts, how much power does it now have? Okay. And that's what you are doing. When you're challenging your thoughts, you are diminishing the power that this thought has, the thought that has so much hold over you. You're going, I don't think so. I'm not having it today. I'm not having it. It's like if someone said that out loud to you and someone said, for instance, for me, if they said you're stupid, I go, hold on a minute. What are you talking about? I'm not stupid. I've done all of this. How am I stupid? You're disrupting that thought. And that's what can be really helpful when you do challenge your thoughts. It isn't something that overnight you're going to be like, yep, I've got all of this. I can say this. I can say that. It can take time. It can. The first step is trying, right? The first step is trying to do that. It might even be really helpful to write it down. So I used to have a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, my thoughts on the left, and then my column on the right would be how I could think differently about this. Okay. So, thinking that the world's a terrible place, you might think, well, actually, there's lots of good in this world. If you're looking at the news right now, you might think that, but it might be the world has provided us with a lot of opportunity. There's a real sense of community, whatever that might be, to disrupt that negative thought that you have. And think about it. When you think positive, how much better do we all feel? We can feel lighter, we can feel relieved, less stressed, less depressed, less anxious. Thinking good feels good, right? Feels really good. So it's all about challenging them thoughts that we have, okay? And sometimes what I used to do as well is I used to think, okay, so I can't challenge that thought because I can't think of another way. So I used to think that, okay, if that was someone else, okay? If someone else told me that, if one of my best friends or a family member said to me, this is how I'm feeling about myself, what would I tell them? Because actually, we're really, really good at giving advice, the best at it, but we're never good at taking our own advice. So even when you're saying, what would I say to a friend? Then you can go, okay. Well, maybe that's something that I need to take on board now. Maybe that's something for me for a change. It's all about you doing you, hun, and it's time to change. So it's about you focusing on you. Number 3, what would a loved one say to you right now? Okay? You're experiencing this, you're feeling this, whatever's happening right now is hurting you. Whatever you're feeling right now is hurting you. What would someone say to you? What would they say? Okay? Often if I made mistakes, it would be like the world was over. I would act like, I couldn't cope going forward because I'm just a mess and I can't get anything right. If anyone had seen that, heard that, because I didn't articulate it, but if I did, people would go to me, even people that wouldn't know me would go, Laura, do you know what? You're doing a great job. You're doing the best you can. You're not these things you say you are. You're this, you're that. You're educated, you're capable, and because of you, people smile, people laugh, and actually you matter. You matter in the world. And sometimes that's all that we need to hear, isn't it? We just need to hear that we matter. Okay. So what would a loved one tell me right now? So we've got the stop approach and take a deep breath. We've got challenging your thoughts, and you might do that in your head. You might write that down. You might say it out loud in the car. Whatever you've got to do, hun, you do you. 3, what would a loved one tell me? We've gone through that. And lastly, practice mindfulness. Because the problem is with our thoughts are taking us elsewhere. They're taking us into our mind, they're taking us into the future, they're taking us into the past, but they're not really taking us into the present moment. Because when we are thinking, we're not really in the moment, are we? So right now, I am in the moment, I am looking at my computer screen, and all I am thinking about is what I'm saying next. That's literally it. I'm not thinking about dinner because I've just had dinner, but also now I'm thinking about dinner because I've just said it. But what I'm trying to tell you is when you're in the moment, you're not thinking about anything else. You have absolute direction and tunnel vision into what you are doing. And that is why practicing mindfulness is such a good thing to do when you are feeling unwell, upset, overwhelmed, your thoughts are taking over. It can give you a breather. And I think a lot of people think mindfulness, they think instantly meditation, but mindfulness can be many forms. What mindfulness is, essentially, is bringing you into the here and now. It's bringing you to the present moment. It's bringing you right in so you can think about what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you touch. All of these senses are activated, because if you're doing that, you can't really be in your head too much because you've got so much going on. So what you're doing really is you're kind of overloading your brain with what's going on now, so it's not overloading you. You're taking control. You're making sure that your brain is serving you and not your brain affecting you. Okay, so practicing mindfulness has many different forms. There is meditation. Okay, so that can be on YouTube, you can look on Headspace, whatever that might be. But what I would say, if you're new to meditation, make sure you keep it short and simple. Don't do you might want to do a half an hour one if you're a beginner, because you might get frustrated if it doesn't go right. So do a really short one, and your thoughts are going to be bugging you, and say, okay, I notice your thoughts, but I'm going to let you go now. Thanks for coming. Bye. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye now. Just say, I'm busy. You're focusing. Because the problem is as well, we can get so frustrated when we're doing meditation because we think, I need to be completely calm and completely focused. But you can't always do that because your old habits, your thoughts are going to peer in. So just say that you notice them and you're going to let them go and you're going to keep focusing. Another way to do mindfulness, you can do some colouring. A lot of people find colouring really relaxing. It's a real space to get out and put things on paper and just get out of your head. I used to find for my career mental health that when I wanted to speak to someone who I knew it was going to be a difficult conversation with them, I would suggest colouring with them, with the young people that I worked with. And even teenagers love the colouring, adults love colouring, everyone loves colouring. They can find it's a really good way to switch off. And what you tend to find is that was a great way to talk to someone, because we were both colouring, we were both focusing on, not getting out of the lines, and we were calm. And then that meant we could have good conversation. But for you on your own, it can mean you can turn off. It can mean you channel your peace, and you can just, think about that colouring. That's all you've got to think about. Another way you can be mindful, going for a walk, looking at nature. What can you see? What can you hear? Can you hear birds right now? Can you see the blue sky? Do you see dog walkers? Are you looking at dogs? What is it that's going on right now? And that can be being mindful. Another way could be mindful eating, focusing on each chew, what that sense is like, what that tastes like. It's really about bringing you in to the here and now. And that's what you're doing with these managing thoughts. You're trying to distract yourself away from what you're thinking and bring it back to right now. Because right now, all you've got to think about is exactly what you are doing in that moment. Do you think it's helpful for me to be thinking about something in 6 months that I'm anxious about when I'm doing this podcast? Do you think it's a waste of time to me be worrying about what happened 10 years ago? You know, sometimes we waste energy, we waste time, and we think that we are out of control. But I'm here to tell you, you're not out of control. And the more that you retrain your brain, I can guarantee you, the easier, the lighter that you are going to feel. So I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast today. Short and sweet, but hopefully I got the point across. I am available on the Do You Hun podcast on Instagram. We are on Facebook, and you can also connect with me at Laura Louise Burke. If you liked this podcast today, if you can share it, if you can review it on Apple Podcasts, if you can rate it on Spotify, I would really appreciate it. I think the more reviews you get, I believe it shows more people. I believe. So that means we can help even more people, because all together we can be a part of great change. It's not just me alone. We can all do something to help someone. So if you know someone who's been struggling with their thoughts and you think this might help them, get it to them. Get it to them, because we all need help at some point. But I hope you're doing well. I hope you're okay. And look, at the end of the day, you do you, hun.